for next month. We are called the Ozaki Wellness League, or the Wise Owls. And the reason why is, first of all, it's cool. But also, we're going to be sharing a lot of concepts tonight that some of you guys are familiar with, but we want to get a safe place that we can share ideas, go over different concepts, and start to empower a lot of our people here so we can start to get proactive when it comes to healthcare. Some of the statistics that, if you look at your packet, if you want to read along, we're talking about the top 10 inflammatory foods. The statistics show that each year about 12.9 million people will die from some form of cardiovascular disease, and that's as in 2004. And also heart disease and cancer have been going on the up for years and years now, and they all come down to one common denominator, and that's chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammation can be basically the mechanism behind heart disease, diabetes, cancer. Nearly every one of the leading causes of death and disease in our society and in the Western society in general come down and can be contributed to inflammation, in particular through dietary choices that we make, because the standard American diet is also considered SAD or SAD. Standard American diet consists of a lot of pro-inflammatory foods, which we're going to talk about tonight, and basically you can dig your grave with your fork, meaning that the choices you make when it comes to nutrition and what you eat is ultimately going to determine your health. It's something that a lot of times we are discouraged from even considering those ideas. I still have patients that come in and see me that do not see any correlation between the food they eat and the lifestyle they have and any of the disease processes that they suffer from. We're here to tell you, though, that's not the case. When it comes to nutrition, nutritional modification is a powerful healer. We're also going to go over concepts of nerve interference as well, and then also some products that we use in our office that helps out when it comes to the inflammatory process and for pain. Like we talked about the first time around last month, we're really trying to get proactive when it comes to educating people on the use of opioids. Opioids is a major epidemic in our society. We know that the gatekeeper has been the medical community and the pharmaceutical community, and we want to make sure that people are aware of the deadly consequences of using and overutilizing opioids in particular. So we want to talk about things and not only ways of helping prevent having to use those products, but other things that are much safer, much more natural that we want to consider as well. So whenever we talk about any type of health, we want to start with back to the most basic concepts, and that is, what is health? Let's just have someone define health. Who wants to tell us what they feel like health is, the word health means? Define health for me. Anybody?
Spirit, mind, and body.
Mind, body, spirit. What'd you say?
You don't have to go in the box.
You don't have to go in the box yet. Not going in the box too soon. Using mind, body, and spirit ways of balancing so we can actually get health. See, we're working together here. What I normally hear, though, is health is how I feel. Meaning that if I feel fine, there's nothing wrong with me. If I start to feel symptoms, then what were we always told? Just what? Hopefully it'll go away. We can ignore the symptoms, hopefully they'll go away. Then what will normally happen if the symptoms get too irritating, or if it gets to the point where we're not functioning because of the symptoms? What are we encouraged to do?
Go to the doctor.
Go to the doctor to get what?
Drugs.
To get drugs? Exactly. So we know that the body has a communication system, or ability to communicate to us. It's a linguistics. That is that if the body is showing symptoms, there has to be a sign or a reason behind those symptoms. So whenever we talk about health, we don't want to talk about health as how we feel, because ultimately health, you can feel great, but hopefully no one here can pass away suddenly. So we want to make sure that health is not how we feel, but how well we're functioning. And those are some important concepts. So that means that if I start to get symptoms, or I don't feel good, that means that the body is trying to communicate to me that there's a problem. That's pretty much the opposite end of the spectrum of how most people approach health. So let's go back down to the old school history here. We have what's considered holistic healthcare approach versus a mechanistic healthcare approach. These two ideologies have literally been crisscrossing through the history of mankind. Some get more popular at some times, others other times. But ultimately, whenever you talk about health is a mechanistic viewpoint, you're basically saying that your body is a piece of what? If a mechanistic, your body is a piece of machinery. So what's inevitable with machinery? It's going to break down, right? So we're talking about tonight that if my body is a piece of machinery and I'm doomed to wither away with age and we're all dust in the wind, then ultimately what does the healing within us? A holistic approach says that if I took every blood vessel, every organ, every gland, every cell in your body put together, I'd have a corpse. Because what I'm not taking into account is that everyone possesses a life force within them. A holistic viewpoint says that your body is not only all the parts of it, but there's a little bit something extra there. Something that's self-regulating, self-adapting, and self-healing. Therefore, there's an intelligence within us. So it's essential that we start to look and recognize that first and foremost so that we can put the pieces here together. We call it audio, above, down, inside out. Health comes from above, down, inside out. Some people are comfortable with the idea of God or a universal intelligence, so health is coming from that source. Other people are comfortable with the brain as being the above portion of it. But ultimately, we know through science that that is the mechanism of healing and proper health, from above, down, inside out. So what we think about, we bring about. And we're going to talk about how the emotional and mental components of us is essential for normal health as well. So if we're talking about our body being intelligent, let's throw some ideas out there, a couple of examples of that. Say I went down to Mexico, and unfortunately I drank some water and I got a parasite or a bacterial infection. What's a real common thing to happen when I come back from Mexico?
Montezuma's revenge.
Montezuma's revenge. I'm not going to ask you whether you've ever experienced that or not, but what do you think would happen if your body had ingested a parasite during that vacation, and now your body's actually trying to expel the parasite through the diarrhea? Is that a sign that your body's smart or stupid?
Smart.
Smart. It's trying to get rid of the toxins. What do we think whenever that happens? It is
Plug it up.
uncomfortable. Let's plug it up. All right, so like that. Basically, you're right. The idea is it's uncomfortable, so let's find a way to mask in the symptoms with medication to plug it up so that it's no longer uncomfortable. Well, guess what happens now? Do you want the parasite? Guess what you got? You got the parasite now because you shut down the body's natural ability to get rid of it. Nothing will happen to you guys tonight, but let's say you did eat some bad food. Not here.
No.
No. So we'll say spoiled chicken. Not here. We have your chicken. What would happen? How would your body respond that you would like to see? You would throw up. You'd vomit. Now, a lot of people think that that is a sign that the body's not smart, right? So they'll take what? Medication to mask the symptoms and therefore not allow the body to get rid of the toxins. So whenever we look at the different symptoms and different events, we have to look at the body's being self-regulating, self-adapting, and self-healing. Therefore, there's an intelligence within it. So whenever we're talking about inflammation, which is what we're talking about tonight, we want to look at what is the mechanism behind it. Because we know that it's not just that we're doomed to this. It's not that we're just, like we said, dust in the wind or that our body is designed to fail. There's something that's causing this, and therefore we have to recognize the cause, remove the cause, so we can get normal function again. So before we get into the anti-inflammatory or inflammatory talk, we want to go back to that most basic concept that we talked about last month, and that is mind, body, spirit. Patricia was correct on that, or that's what we believe. And whenever we talk about mind, body, spirit, there's a good way of looking at this. We want to have truth on our mind. The mind, we have to have truth on our mind. The truth is our body is self-regulating, self-adapting, and self-healing. Therefore, it's intelligent. So we have to know that. We call that the big idea. Once we get this big idea that we have truth on our mind, we're able to express our life through our body, and that our spirit is expressed within love within our heart. Mind, truth is what we want on our mind. That our body is intelligent. It has the ability to heal, it has the ability to regulate, and it has the ability to self-adapt. So therefore there's an intelligence within it. If there's a universal intelligence within us, that must mean there's a universal intelligence as well. So it's essential that we get the truth on our mind. It doesn't have to be anything more basic than the idea that my body is smart, and therefore we want to do things to help that wisdom or that intelligence within it. The body itself needs to be, we have to express our life through our body. We have so many of our patients that don't move. Not as much our patients, hopefully, but people we see on a regular basis that come in, and they're confused, and they're not frustrated, and they have these different health challenges, but they don't move. You have to express life through movement, through your body. That's essential. So anything, whenever we talk about anything with health, we have to have some type of exercise regimen. It does not have to be anything complicated. A lot of times we have patients that will be able to go walk 30 minutes a day 3 times a week. Walk 30 minutes a day 5 times a week. It can be that basic. Then ultimately we want to have love in our heart. Therefore expressing our spirit. Love in our heart needs to be number one. Who? Love for ourselves. Love for ourselves. And we do that through recognizing that if my body's self-regulating, self-adapting, self-healing, therefore I have a piece of wisdom within me. No one's perfect, but everyone possesses a piece of perfection within them. If that links up to your beliefs within a God or universe or however high you want to go with that audio idea, then we have to have that as love in our heart, that we actually love for ourselves because we possess this ability. Love for that fact that we are intelligent, we have the intelligence within us. So after we talk about all that, most people will say, well, why am I sick then? Or why do I have health problems? I do talks periodically, even with the religious community. And that's a big catch is, well, why is God doing this to me? Or why is this happening to me? Well, we're going to talk about the fact that there's universal principles that are in place as well. And if those universal principles are violated, the consequences are the health problems a lot of people are suffering from. So when we talk about that, well, let's go deeper than that. So we're going to inflammation. So we talk about heart disease, diabetes, cancer, all of which are the result of long-term chronic inflammation. There are several other problems, all the digestive issues that most people have, from the most complicated Crohn's disease to indigestion, and everything in between with digestion almost always correlates with inflammation as well. So let's get down into the nitty-gritty here, and we'll start with the top 10 foods that cause inflammation within the body. Don't look at the fact that sugar's number one and that we're serving cake tonight. Tonight's a special night, special treat, okay? But sugar's number one. The average American eats 150 pounds of sugar per year. The average American eats 150 pounds of sugar per year. Whenever I put that statistic out there, I always ask people how many people proactively add sugar to their food. Raise your hand. A couple of guys back. Okay. Put your hand down. Put your hand down.
Coffee.
Fact is, Joe. Fact is, though, is that most people don't have to add that much sugar because it's already in your food. If your food is processed, if it's from a can, in a box, in a bag, it's usually highly processed. It's usually has sugar that's added to it already. Has anyone heard about a PET scan or PET scan? Has anyone had that done before? What are they for?
Well, it was to find cancer.
They look for cancer or tumors.
Yeah.
What do they use to mark that? What does the dye consist of that's in?
Well, you've got radiation, radioactive isotopes.
What else though? What drives that substance to the cancer cells?
Sugar, glucose.
Sugar.
Yeah.
Correct. If you put sugar in that dye will transfer over to that tumor. That's how they find it. They found that now cancer cells are extremely intelligent, thus the intelligence we have within us, and it really is just a matter of adaptation. A cancer cell, one cell will have 46 receptors for sugar on the outside of it, compared to one receptor that a normal cell would have. Cancer cells live and flourish in no oxygen or low oxygen areas. And essentially what happens is they are fermenting their energy through sugar. Cancer cells do not have mitochondria. They do not have the ability to proactively create any type of energy, but they feed off of sugar. The PET scan knows that, the medical community knows that, but most of us don't. So basically when you're eating that sugar, it is going to a cell that's inappropriately replicating, has already modified itself to burn off of sugar or create its energy through fermenting sugar in a low or no oxygen environment, and there is how the beast manifests. That's not bad luck. That's not God turning our back on us. That is us violating the universal principles and thus getting the adaptation qualities of the body, and the manifestation of that is that tumor. Well, what's responsible for going around and finding those tumors and eradicating them? They say everyone can be diagnosed with cancer 7 times in their life, and everyone constantly has cells within them that is inappropriately replicating. What does your body do about that? Ideally.
White blood cells?
White blood cells, thank you. The immune response. Your immune response is basically your white blood cells are mobilized to go and search and destroy that tumor, that cell that's inappropriately replicating. Well, what else do white blood cells, what else are they responsible for? We'll say foreign invaders, right? Well, what else could be a foreign invader within our body? I'm not going to get into this in depth tonight, but we call it leaky gut. Leaky gut syndrome, if you are a standard American diet, you have it. Which basically means that there's an erosion between the one cell layer between your gut, or where all your food's coming through, and your bloodstream. Well, it's pretty common that over time, because of dysbiosis or the imbalance of good bacteria to bad bacteria, and the fact that our standard American diet and the medical community destroys our good bacteria, that erosion takes place and the food starts to come right into your bloodstream. So now, what else do you think your white blood cells are cleaning up? Your Big Mac, your French fries, all the different things are now circulating around in your body. So leaky gut is a major cause of inflammation, a major cause of disease, and it's something that is very well documented, but most people have no idea. We have an entire way of healing the gut, and when I say gut, I'm talking about the digestive tract, and there's a whole mechanism behind this. There is a reason and a mechanism behind these problems, but most people are never explained these things, and they're taught that it's irrelevant of what they eat, for example. But we know that sugar is a monster in our society. Another thing with sugar, what happens if you become so sugar-ridden, I guess for lack of better words, that your body starts to ignore the fact that the sugar's in your bloodstream? Have anyone ever heard of that? What carries sugar into the cell?
Your liver.
Yeah, close. What carries sugar into the cell? This is exciting. Insulin. Okay? Insulin is what carries sugar in the cell. So think about this way. This is the analogy. Insulin knocks on the door to the cell and says, I have sugar to bring in for fuel. Well, if the door is constantly being knocked on, over time, what does the cell start to do? It starts to ignore that. And once it starts to ignore that, then the insulin, it becomes insulin resistant. And once you become insulin resistant, that is the precursor to diabetes. Now the cells feel like you have so much energy in the body at all times that stops bringing in the energy in through that form, and the cells start to die off. So diabetes is ultimately insulin resistance, meaning that it's no longer able to bring that in to use it as fuel. What's the other thing you can burn instead, though? Your body's able to burn two different things for fuel: sugar and fat. Awesome. So fats are another way of burning energy. So we have a whole presentation we can do as early as next month about ketosis, or fat burning. They also call it metabolic mitochondrial therapy. That sounds pretty wild, huh? Metabolic mitochondrial therapy. It means there's ways we can proactively switch and push your body away from burning sugar towards burning fat instead. And when you do so, you bypass the entire insulin mechanism, and therefore you can start to fuel or get the body back the fuel it needs to burn. What do you think happens with dementia and Alzheimer's in particular? They're saying now that that's type 3 diabetes, meaning insulin resistance within the brain cells. Same idea. Brain cells become resistant to the sugar, because overwhelmed with it. Over time, it starts to die off. The cells start to die off. That's dementia, that's Alzheimer's. Along with toxicity from the environment, aluminum in particular, which they found is in the plaque that creates Alzheimer's. So what do you think a good strategy would be if you're insulin resistant for burning sugar in your brain? What would be another thing you could burn instead? We already talked about it. Fat. So part of the ketosis diet, or going to ketosis, is basically burning fat instead. The studies have shown with Alzheimer's and dementia have been remarkable. The idea of giving the brain fuel in a different form than just sugar, the results have been incredible. So let me back up just a little bit. Part of why we have these talks is because we're going to be going through concepts that you will not see in the nightly news anytime soon. Whenever I do talks like this, we talk about lag time. And it's an actual factual phenomenon. that between 10 to 12 years, what's considered actual factual within science, it'll take about 10 to 12 years until society or our public will accept this. Whenever I do these talks, I always say, who has heard of trans fatty acids and that they're bad for you? Raise your hand. 5 years ago, who have heard about that? Nobody. Same idea here. These concepts of sugar feeding cancer. Oh, controversial. Bullshit. Or baloney. Sorry, kids. That's not controversial. This is the fact. This is the truth. So it's essential that when I talk about, well, let's switch away from burning sugar to burning fats instead. Metabolic mitochondrial therapy. You're going to hear more and more about it. And that's also an incredible way to get weight loss as well. So, sugar, talked about it already, but essentially sugar is what is driving not only the diabetes, but it's also driving Alzheimer's and cognitive issues as well. And it's a major cause of inflammation. Let's move on. Common cooking oils. I know. We go strictly with, as much as possible, cooking with coconut oil. Coconut, there we go. Coconut oil is fantastic. It can be heated at high levels. What happens when you normally heat an oil? It goes from a cis formation to a transformation, which is a trans fatty acid. So when you heat up that fat or that oil, you're usually converting that over to a trans fatty acid. So we want to have something you can heat at real high levels that will not change or will not change the formation of the molecular structure. Coconut oil. If you're going to use virgin olive oil, which is excellent, organic, use that at normal room temperature. So cooking oils. We know, I have one uncle, I'm from northern Michigan, other side of the lake, don't hold it against me, I'm also a Detroit Lions fan, so I'm cursed with that, so it all balances out.
Oh, my God.
I know, it's tough, especially pack
allowed
country.
one mistake.
Yeah, thanks. Here's my one. I have one uncle that's still alive that's over 50. One. I don't have any aunts, my mom, my grandma, all of them have diabetes, type 2 diabetes, all of them. I remember going back from undergrad one time, and I was a vegetarian at the time, and my grandma was like, how can you be that vegetarian? You're one of those, is what she said. And I said, well, Grandma, the fact is, and at that time I was really anti-factory farming. That was the main reason why I was getting away from the meat. I'm like, Grandma, the fact is that when you were growing up, the meat and the sources were way different than they are now. Things are so much different now than they are. And as we talked further, she started to understand, well, maybe it's actually the local grocery store that's causing so many of these health issues in our area. Maybe it's the foods that people are eating and the fact that they're just taking the medications to mask the symptoms they're getting from their food. Maybe that's what's killing everyone off prematurely. And sure enough, that's what we have found over time. So whenever we talk about cooking oils, we have to really look hard at, back in the history of our society, a lot of these things, with the trans fats in particular, where you going? Have a good afternoon. Thanks for coming. You got your stuff. I'm going to quiz you next time I see you. A lot of these things are the same technology they used for World War I and World War II. They want to use things as far as processing foods, coming up with oils that could be, basically won't go rancid. That they can ship, or they can have a long shelf life, and they can ship all over the place and it won't rot. Well, we found over time that that's the worst thing for our body is when we start to create synthetic type of substances where body cannot handle it properly. So margarine and vegetable oil are probably the two biggest, largest causes of heart disease, especially with the World War II soldiers that came back. My grandpa died at 45. He was healthy. He didn't eat fruits and vegetables, was a well-known fact. He ate meats, but he also ate all, he smoked cigarettes and drank or whatever, but he ate all processed foods. And they all use Crisco, they all use margarine, it's also supposed to be superior. My grandpa, God bless him, was dry. He's like, I have a problem. He's like 48, and I'm 45. I have a problem, I'm not feeling well. He went over to his mother's house, who's my grandma, who's still alive at 93.
It was your uncle.
Oh, sorry, my uncle. Sorry, my uncle, who would be my grandma's son. We walked over to my grandma's house. She brought him to the hospital, and then on his way to the hospital, his wife was in the back seat, and so was his younger son. And he leaned over, he took out his wallet, put it on the dashboard, took off his ring, gave it to his wife, curled over and died on the way to the hospital. Done. That wasn't a case of him having bad luck. We don't have any genetic stuff for that in our family. The guy was poisoned from rancid oils and all these different processed foods, and he's a classic World War II veteran. When the 50s and 60s, when these guys, not just World War II, but as these guys got older, the death rates have gone through the charts with that age group in particular, and it can really go back to margarine and cooking oils as a main culprit there. So high levels, we want to use what? Coconut oil. Oh, it's a fish. Everyone's like, yeah. Not mine.
Someday.
Everyone's gonna yell and scream. I always love it because I'm a big fan of athletics and stuff too. But I get fired up about this stuff, and then if you talk about other sports and stuff, other people get all fired up, and they're like, I'm not sure why I'm not excited about other things. But sports gets them off, so that's fine. But it's important though that as we start to get more empowered with this information, that you make that correlation. That once again, this isn't an issue of bad luck or good luck or anything like that. These are universal principles, and if we use them correctly, we're going to thrive in our environment. Next one is dairy products. Dairy products. Now, whenever we talk about dairy, we're not talking about raw milk. We're not talking about dairy that's done properly without homogenizing it or fortifying it. We're talking about the standard American diet milk. How many people are farmers or grew up on a farm? Where did you drink your milk, Jeff?
The farm,
Out of a tank.
the ladle right off the.
Ladle right off the tank.
I usually take the cream first.
Right off the teat. Good job. That's old school right there. Appreciate that. The whole point is that when you eat or you're drinking it right out of the tank, it actually has all the vitamins, all the good bacteria in it as well.
Farmers never get sick.
Farmers are, and that's one of the reasons. Why do they homogenize it to begin with? And what is homogenizing it? You cook it, you boil it so much that you kill off everything. Well, the fact is, what's that?
Pasteurization.
Pasteurization. Oh, thank you. Pasteurization is cooking it.
Homogenizing,
Putting
making
it all
it
together.
fats.
Awesome. We're getting it together.
I'm your wife.
Work
I
here.
gotcha.
So here's my point, though, is that they say back when Mayo Clinic was going on, back in the old days, it's still around now, but it's now almost all medical. Back in those days, one of the big things that Mayo Clinic would use was raw milk to get the good bacteria back in you as a healing mechanism. So once they pasteurize it, they boil off everything, kill off all the bacteria, even the good ones, and then they homogenize it, so they add it all together. Well, what happens though? Why would you have to kill off or sanitize that entire batch of milk?
So you ship it.
So you can ship it, but also that means
It long lasting.
it'll be long lasting, but also it means you no longer have to care about the conditions of the cow. Because if the cow's healthy, and if the person who's milking the cow doesn't have like tuberculosis, or is it sneezing into his hands, that milk cannot be affected by bacteria. Okay? So what they do is they just get as much as they can, boil it all, and voila, we can sell it to anybody, anytime, anywhere, because now it's pasteurized, homogenized, but it killed it. Once it's dead, it's no longer any use to you. So dairy is a major cause of inflammation. I personally, if I have too much dairy, my ears get all clogged up. I mean, we have tons of patients that have lots of sinus issues. And a lot of times it's a matter of them having dairy sensitivity. And it's not raw, but it's the homogenized, pasteurized milk that what most people eat or drink. Yes.
So, can you buy raw milk anywhere?
It's kind of like black market, but it's available.
Yeah.
It's available. There's some sources around. We can talk about that later. But it's it's the FDA or the state laws are very hard on natural stuff like this, and it's almost all follow the money trail.
They don't want you to.
They don't want competition, and they certainly don't want people to start to learn that the products that they are emphasizing, that they promote, are anything that would be detrimental at all. One of the big things would be, well, if we admit that pasteurized dairy is inferior, oh, then that's the gravy train, baby. Don't want to rock the gravy train. So we just keep it rolling with the idea that everyone needs their milk. The big thing now is chocolate milk to rehydrate you and get you nutrition after working out, I guess.
I've seen it at triathlons.
Yeah.
Chugging the chocolate milk.
Chugging the chocolate milk
They
is
spent
a
millions
great
of
source
dollars trying to
of
convince people to
protein.
do
Great source of protein, blah, blah, blah. Sugar milk is not any help. I don't know. It's all promotion, it's all marketing. Yes, sir.
When it comes to milk, I go to different stores, Piggly Wiggly, Century, whatever. And you get all these different brands. Beans and Century and Piggly Wiggly. Which one of them is the best?
Well, we go with organic, like an organic, you
Yeah,
can,
organic. I
yeah.
mean, which one of these common gallon of milk is the best?
Well, then you go with organic, that would be on the shelf, and
Yeah,
there's,
they
most of
would
them
be.
are not organic, and a lot of them,
These milks, like you go Century by Century milk, you go to Piggy by Pig milk, or Dean's, or
Yeah.
whatever's out there, Dean's especially.
You're all
They
the
cost
same.
$1 more a gallon than the other milk.
You're all the same.
But I pointed out to a lot of shoppers when I'm buying the milk, I said, look here on the bottle. All this milk, regardless if it's Dean's, Century, Piggly Wiggly, whatever, it all comes out of the same plant.
I agree
That's
with
true.
It
that.
all
That's
comes out of
true.
the same plant.
Yeah,
How you can tell? Next time you buy a gallon of milk, look on the bottle. You'll see too, a code, 55, which is the state's number of Wisconsin, 55-08. You find that on every different brand of milk there is, which means the milk comes all out of the same plant,
Absolutely.
regardless of the name on the bottle. That don't mean it's not worth what it's printed on. So just check that out. Buy
Alright,
a gallon
there
of
you go.
milk, 55-08 from this area. But that milk comes all from the same plant. Where in Wisconsin is, I don't know. I can find out by calling the.
well, do some detective work and let us know what's going on.
What?
Do some detective work and let's get to the bottom of this.
Well, I can.
I agree with you, I agree with
All I
you.
have to do is find, call the Wisconsin Department of Ag Consumer Protection.
Alright,
And say, where is 55?
you do it, you do it, do it for us and let us know
Okay,
it next
I'll do it.
time, I wanna see what's going
Well,
on.
I know one thing is 55 is Wisconsin's number.
Okay,
Because I hauled milk many years from this area down to Golden Guernsey Waukesha. And their number was 55-184. If a bottle of milk had that on, it came out of Waukesha plant, Golden Guernsey and Waukesha. But then what happened, some idiots I call them from the south who didn't know the ass from the hole in the ground, bought the plant, shut it down a couple of months later. It's been empty ever since. Now, I don't know what they're doing with it now. They're probably making some kind of yogurt there or whatever. But anyway, the one in Waukesha was supplying all of southeast Wisconsin schools with milk.
He's right, I used to watch the
So
trucks
then
down
these
there.
idiots that from Mexico or New Mexico, Dean Foods among them, they're the worst crippled, they're the worst criminal out there, Dean Foods.
They are.
You look at the Dean Foods in the store, a gallon of milk costs you $1 more than a gallon of milk at Piggly Wiggly. It's the same darn thing. It
alright,
comes out of the same plant.
perfect, alright, let's keep moving. Pat, thank you though,
I'll find out
let's go
where
next
that
month,
plant
give
is.
us more information. Yes,
What about coconut or?
fantastic,
almond milk?
almond milk, coconut milk, absolutely,
All
Unsweetened.
the, I say,
Unsweet.
one thing on milk,
yes,
if it does not come from a cow, don't call it milk.
I agree with you there. Alright, so the next thing would be feedlot, raised milk, raised meat. We're gonna switch the subject here. Now, back to what I was talking about with my grandma, she would say, well, you know, if you're a vegetarian, you know, why are you doing it? I used to eat meat, there's nothing wrong with me. You know, she's in her 90s, and you know, there's a lot to be said about that. But what she did realize is that we have, the conditions, the way that we raise animals have changed tremendously. And whenever we talk about factory farmed or feedlot raised meats, we know that the main thing is going to be the omega-3 fatty acids.